Well, hello, elders and elder alumni. I'm just glad that you're tuning in now for our first video on Christian theology. You've got your book, and we gave you an assignment to say, look at chapter 1. As I started going through chapter 1 and some of the other chapters, I thought, let's slow down a little bit. I know, you're welcome. Some of that stuff is a little bit thick, and so what I thought we would do is instead of looking at a chapter a week, we're going to just take this first month and look at one chapter, 20 pages. So from now until May 21st, we only have to look at one chapter, read about 20 pages, and talk about one thing. And I thought we would just kick right into something that's super practical and not talk about theology and philosophy and Kant and other philosophers, and just talk about something that's super practical. And so if you guys want, if you're really anxious, you can read the whole book real fast, or we can talk about going faster in the future. But for now, let's just start with a chapter this month. And so I thought we would start with chapter 41, the person of the Holy Spirit. That's on page 861 in this version of Christian theology. Let me just walk you through what this looks like. So as you're reading, there'll be some things you'll look for. You're always going to start out with chapter objectives. That's just going to tell you what you're going to hope to do during this reading. And so you may want to read it more than once so that you can achieve these objectives. Then you're going to get something that's the most important thing in here, and that's the chapter summary. That's like in the Cliff Notes. I know a couple of you were looking for the Cliff Notes in this book, and they're already in the book. That is the chapter summary. Okay? Now, if you really want to cheat, you can go to the end of the chapter, and that's going to be on page 879. And what it's going to do is, again, give you a chapter summary. It's a little more detailed, but it's basically the conclusions of what you should have gotten out of this chapter. And then the third thing you're going to find on page 861, the first page here, is the study questions. And these are the exact questions that we're going to talk about on May 21st when we talk about theology. And so you're going to know, you're going to have something to say because you'll have already answered these questions. Let me just show you how I'm going to approach this chapter as I do the reading for myself. If you scroll down to page 862, the doctrine or the importance of the doctrine of the Holy Spirit, he's going to tell us that this is going to be an important thing for us to study because the Holy Spirit is really how we come to know God. He's the one who's living and active inside of us. And he's the one who's most prominent on the stage today. You see the Father is most prominent in the Old Testament, the Son, Jesus, being most prominent in the Gospels, but played out in our hearts today is the Holy Spirit. There's some difficulties in understanding the Holy Spirit. That's the next section you're going to see here on page 863. He says, it's hard for us to understand the Holy Spirit well because there's not as much explicit teaching on the Holy Spirit as there is the Father or the Son. The other thing that's difficult is we understand a father because we all had a father. You had a biological father, and you probably had a father that helped to raise you. We understand a son because we've either had sons or known sons, but Jesus was a person in human history. A spirit we have very little experience with, and so it's just more difficult for us to understand. That's kind of what he's going to say here. There's going to be an 8-page section here in the middle on the history of the doctrine of the Holy Spirit. I'm not telling you to skim it, but if you did, we're probably not going to ask a lot of questions about this. Okay? It's history of doctrine, so, if you want to go a little quicker, some of you guys, go ahead. Then you get to page 875, you're going to look at the personality of the Holy Spirit. This is an important section, and what he's going to do here is show us proof that you never want to call the Holy Spirit an it. He is a person. He is a person with a personality. He's God, and we can know him. So as you read through this chapter, look at those questions and say, am I getting what those study questions were about? Am I getting these chapter objectives? And I'm looking forward to getting to talk with you guys about this. So, and again, if you want to read more, if you want to start at chapter 1 and go back and do some of that, that's great. I applaud you in that. But for right now, we'll just start with this, and then we'll see how things go from here. Once again, Thank you guys for serving. I'm honored to serve with you, and I'm praying for you. God bless you.